Good morning, everyone. Good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are, and welcome to this week's Weekly Energy Boost. My name is Elisheva, and I'm here this morning with David.
Good morning.
And it is the first show of the new decade. We are kicking off 2020 with today's show, which is going to be all about how to get rid of the old energies, old experiences, old hurts, old feelings, old moods, and leap into what's ahead of us, which probably is pretty unknown at this point. But we'll learn today how adjusting our sails, or what we can do to adjust our sails, to make not only this week but this year and this decade one that's full of energy, accomplishment, and fulfillment.
One of our teachers in the Kabbalah world. He's also a mentor to great business people in this world. He was telling me a little bit about some business advice that he was giving to one of his students who does very well, and he said that he noticed from meeting a lot of people who are successful in the business world and have their own businesses, the most important thing was how to create new energy in your business all the time and never taking for granted where you are, never being stagnant. We talk a lot about stagnant energy, and a lot of us have stagnant energy in relationships, in friendships, in business, in our health. And stagnancy creates, is that a word, stagnancy?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Stagnancy creates bacteria, mold.
Swamp or
I was getting
river.
there. I was getting there. I was getting to the swamp analogy. But if you really think about it, anything that's stagnant eventually collects bacteria. And many of us have stagnant energy for whatever reason that we're justifying it. We're just not paying attention to certain areas of our lives.
Sometimes because they're okay. They're doing well. So
That's the worst thing, right? Once you put a ring on it, I can now move on to the next objective. And then what happens is there's a bacteria that begins to develop on that relationship or whatever it is. And what a lot of people don't know is that every vessel in their life, we call these vessels, because a vessel is something that holds energy.
If you want, you can even imagine like a garden. Every plant that you have, every plant is a vessel. Every area in our life is a vessel.
Right, and the major vessels are our home is a vessel, our love life is a vessel, we can go more micro. You can say your car is a vessel. You can even go more micro than that. You can see your chair in the seat in your car, right? So this is how we talk about vessels. Every vessel needs to be renewed. And when we're not renewing it, it starts to develop bacteria, spiritual and physical bacteria. And what most people don't know is that every vessel in our lives are connected together. So they think, well, it's okay if I don't have peace in the home and the home is chaotic, but the business is doing well. But eventually, these vessels connect, and the bacteria starts to spread.
It's like, again, sorry to go back to the garden metaphor, but above ground, they look like separate plants, but below ground, they're sharing the same water, nutrients, soil. They really do become one beneath the surface.
That's right. So I want all of us to kind of think for a moment, to wake us up. And a lot of us we like to think about, meditate, and focus on things that are good and positive. But those areas are flowing. Things that are good, take a break for a moment. Let's go to things that are stagnant. Create energy there. And then you'll have to go back to that original thing that was good. It's about bouncing around all the time. I remember one time Michael Berg, he's the spiritual director of the Kabbalah Center and a mentor to us. Michael Berg told us one of the ways that he manages 4 kids, relationship, being a mentor to 200 teachers, thousands of students, dozens of Kabbalah centers, and 100 other responsibilities he has. He says he asks the Creator every day. This is not a religious technique I'm giving you. This is a spiritual, scientific weapon. He asks the Creator every day, which really means just opening up our own soul to hear wisdom. He asks the Creator every day, what area should I be focusing on? And then there's different areas that kind of speak out to him and say, I need energy here. Or maybe it's the kids need energy here, or the business needs energy. But to be very nimble, to give energy to different parts of your life as they start to call for you and ask for you. And not to wait until they scream for you, but something so simple as your child saying, oh, Dad, I miss you. Well, that means that there's stagnant energy there. You need to do something about it. Or a customer starts getting upset, not even upset, just like something didn't go the right way for a customer, realize there's stagnant energy there. Don't wait for the customer to threaten to leave you. So that's the energy of this week. That's the energy we want to enforce. We're asking everyone in our audience, where in your life do you have stagnant energy?
I actually typed that out in the comments even before you say it. Where in your life do you need renewal or fresh? You know, we want things to be fresh, and maybe it's a little bit too much to ask to be constantly excited about everything in life. But one of the things that Kabbalah teaches is that enthusiasm, looking at life, looking at the plants in your garden or the vessels in the areas in your life that you want to nourish, to fulfill, having enthusiasm by and within itself creates energy. Mm-hmm. So, you know, the Kabbalists have been known to say, fake it till you make it. The reason is because having that attitude of bring it on, let's see what's going to happen, mm-hmm. that lightness, that curiosity, that anticipation, positive anticipation, you know, and I'm sure many people wake up in the morning and say, oh, here we go again, mm-hmm. right? Or the phone rings. No, that's the business call, you know, mm-hmm. like I don't know what the word is for that, trepidation, whatever it is, that creates more challenges.
Impending doom.
Yes. And one of the things we want to embrace this week, and when we say embrace this week, every week we share with you wisdom, nuggets, prescriptions to help you navigate the energy this week. However, those lessons can be applied throughout life at any time. This particular week is going to bring into your focus all of the areas of your life that are a bummer, all of the things that you should, and with good reason, of course, dread, procrastinate, put on the back burner. Here comes the weekly energy boost to tell you don't do it. Instead, jump out of bed in the morning like a tiger, get excited, find ways, and we'll talk about how to do that. I'm sure David has a list, but I have some ways to awaken excitement as well.
I have some steps.
You know, some of it is just things to maintain consciousness, to keep in mind throughout the week. Others are action items so that you can take those areas that are becoming stale and revive them.
You just used a word that we use a lot in Kabbalah, consciousness, and I want to define that, because I know we have a lot of new listeners who check in with us. And for everyone who's new, and even if you've been studying for a while, to remember that the wisdom of Kabbalah is spiritual wisdom to help us understand the DNA and mapping of our soul and how it fits in this universe. There's nothing religious here. There's nothing about religion here. We are discussing weapons to elevate consciousness, and science has proven that consciousness affects your reality. And we take it a step further and we realize that there's infinite energy in this world. We call this energy the creator. You can call it whatever you want. And when you access this energy, you have fulfillment and you have all the things that you're looking for. And when you don't have access to this energy, doesn't matter how smart, talented, or whatever you are, you're going to have chaos. So it behooves us all to learn, you know, the system of how the soul works. And that's what Kabbalah is. Kabbalah is a system of how the soul works. I'm going to do a plug. Do take Kabbalah 1 if you haven't. And if you are studying for a long time, people who take Kabbalah 1, they say that their lives are transformed. Well, I'm sure somebody will put a link here of how people can access it.
By the way,
easy way.
It's January. In January at every Kabbalah center around the world, we have a Kabbalah 1 starting.
That's
so
correct.
If you're physically near a location where you can take the course, take it in person. If not, you have Kabbalah1.com where you can take the class on demand at your convenience and be connected in many dynamic ways.
And the live classes are very popular. Just in LA alone, I know we have almost 400 people pre-registered, and it's already a month away. So
20 days, but who's counting?
Okay, you're right. It's 20 days away, but so it is something really powerful, and going back to define how we define consciousness. Consciousness is the energy you put out into the world through your thoughts, words, and actions. And that energy has a frequency. So when a person is sarcastic and negative and in a bad mood, for whatever reason that you think it's okay to be in one, that you start to put out a certain energy. You start to think negative thoughts. You start to say negative, draining words. And you start to do actions which aren't befitting of your greatness. So what happens is this is the energy you put out in the world. These are the seeds you plant, and then you have the effects of those seeds coming right back at you. It's very cause and effect, very scientific. So when we say positive consciousness, we're talking about all of those frequencies like certainty, sharing, strength, what are some other words? Proactive, perseverance, all the things that we all strive to be. When we say negative consciousness, we're talking about doubts, fears, sadness. Operating from lack, reactive, doing things in a reactive way. So what Elisheva mentioned, and I'm sure you have your steps now of maintaining positive consciousness, it takes a true warrior. It says the hardest thing for a person to do is to maintain positive consciousness. We all have consciousness when things are good. That's easy. Everyone likes us. All the green lights are coming. I just got a successful moment in my life. Of course I have certainty. Of course I love everyone and they love me, and Kabbalah is great and life is great and my relationships are great. That's easy. But a person, and this is what I want to say, and I'm going to pass it over to you. If you want a renewal of energy or blessings in your life, or you feel like you need to increase miracles in your bank account for this new year, the only way we're going to be able to do that is what happens is that the Creator takes away from us the energy that we're feeling, so comfort, pleasure, and you start to feel lack, you start to feel alone in one way or another. At that moment, you have true free will to say, I'm going to have positive consciousness or negative consciousness. 9 out of 10 times, we default to what's easy for us, which is negative consciousness, and we look for instant gratification, and we escape, and we go to old negative patterns of reactive behavior. What we're talking about now for this week, if there will be an opportunity where the pleasures of your life, the things that are protecting you and comforting you, kind of leave for a moment. Either
threaten to leave.
Or just threaten to leave, which can also be scary. And it's a test. It's a test to see how you can maintain and inject the consciousness of certainty. And that's what fake it till you make it comes from, Elisheva said. Fake it till you make it is, I'm not in the mood to be certain. I'm not in the mood to be in a good mood. I'm not in the mood to care about anybody. I'm in a snapping mood. I'm going to snap at everybody. I want everybody to leave me alone. Faking it means I'm making an effort to go against that. And that's how you create the new energy. That's how you put the miracles in the bank for the coming year.
Well, I was actually listening to a lecture that was talking about how in order for something to manifest, in order for something to come to fruition, you have to have certainty twice. You have certainty, you lose it, and then you get it back. And if you don't have that second, you don't. The reason I think it's important to share is because you'll always be challenged in consciousness, in the consciousness department. Things will look great. Your consciousness will be strong. Things will waver. You know, the scaffolding starts to shake. You get scared. You lose your certainty. And the real work is getting it back. And that's, you know, I loved the name of today's show was, I think, something about like creating your 2020 vision. I think that's one of the keys to being successful in the consciousness department and having that constant enthusiasm and drive for what's going on in your life is not always trusting what you see, not always giving, you know, just because you have 500 emails that say the world is ending right now, doesn't mean the world is ending. And again, I go back to the garden metaphor because so much of what is happening is beneath the surface, right? Flowers lose their petals in order to grow more flowers. You have to trim back the hedges in order for the roses to bloom. There's so many vegetation metaphors I can put in there.
You're in a salad energy today.
You know what's really funny about it is I am like a serial plant killer. Like I cannot grow. I'm one of those people that just can't have plants in my house because I just murder them. Yes. So I cut flowers I'm good with, right? Mm-hmm. They cycle out. But my point is that you know, Kabbalah teaches that our environment in a way is rigged to challenge our certainty, rigged to challenge our consciousness, so that when, let's say, things do look like they're going belly up, do we throw in the towel or do we keep pushing?
People ask us, what's the purpose of life? There's many ways to answer that question. I've heard the Kabbalists say the main purpose of life is to develop your certainty, because once you have your certainty, then everything else falls into place. Certainty means I have certainty that the outcome is going to be good. I have certainty that the creator or the universe wants to give me everything that my soul desires. Certainty that I'm meant to be happy. Certainty that I'm meant to be loved. Certainty about my receiving.
Despite what I see, despite what I'm hearing, despite the market right now, despite the neighbors making me wake up in the middle of the night, despite whatever smoke and mirrors is around me, I'm going to persevere with that consciousness. I know that ultimately this is for my greater good.
And there's not, it doesn't mean you're doing something wrong if your outside world looks like it's against you. As we said, to test our certainty and to strengthen it and to strengthen our soul, we have to be given dynamics that are the opposite of what we want so that we can choose certainty in the face of darkness. So this is essential. This must always be there. If something's going wrong, it doesn't mean you did something wrong. It just means you're actually playing the game right.
Right. And by the way, I see some great comments I want to address. But I'm sure we all know somebody who is feeling that stagnancy, that pessimism, that it's impossible, I can't, the dread, the trepidation. You can tag them in the comments, share the show with them, forward the link. The more of us that are shifting our mindset, the better the world is going to be.
Thank you for sharing the show. I got a comment just this Saturday where someone's like, I send this to my friends. They have no idea what Kabbalah is, and that's okay. This is an easy way for them to understand the energy of our world without even having to study Kabbalah.
So for me, going into the approach, like we said, that whatever's going on is going to lead me to my greater good. To me, the hardest thing to shift is consciousness, because once you start to shift your consciousness, it has a domino effect. Right. Suddenly you get the phone call. Oh, I'm sorry, I said that. It was a mistake. Oh, the bank called and said they made the error. That you realize that the truth is it is all smoke and mirrors to get you to create that shift. And one of the hardest things to shift is those old belief systems, those old patterns that, look at my life. I have proof. This is the way things are. Or this is how I was raised. My parents told me I would this. My teachers told me I would that. My what's the word? Ethnicity makes me this way or that. Like we have all these excuses and sort of programmings that really the universe is begging us. This is not simply a Kabbalistic teaching. This is cosmic. The universe is begging us to break all barriers, to shatter all glass ceilings, to release all of those belief systems that don't serve us. We don't have time anymore.
What's an example of a negative belief, and maybe people can write it in the comments, that is very prevalent, that is haunting most people and limiting them? One just came to my mind, but I want to hear what other people have to say.
Okay. As and I didn't get anything yet. I just see that it's a lot of the comments are around negative thinking, looking down on ourselves, feeling worthless.
I think I'm looking at it here, the comments. It looks like, I know the one I come upon the most, and people don't even realize that this exists, is the belief system that they shouldn't receive. And if you're wondering if you have this belief system of I don't deserve or I shouldn't receive or it's bad to receive, if you're wondering if you have this belief system, if you have an area of your life where you don't have something, you probably have that belief system. Think about it for a moment. Because the moment you believe you deserve to receive, and there's nothing wrong with that because the Creator wants to give you even more than you want to receive.
The word Kabbalah means to receive.
Right.
The wisdom teaches us how to receive more, how to receive the maximum, not how to give away the maximum.
Right. So this is the most, someone says, no, I do believe I should receive a relationship, soulmate, or whatever it is. If you really go down to the deep core of what you believe, you might not really believe that you deserve a happy relationship. You might still have guilt or shame around something you did. You might see that, I know somebody told me that they saw their parents be so abusive, so they believe they don't deserve to have a child because they're afraid that they'll be abusive. I mean, there's so many little twisted belief systems we all have, like deep ingrained in our soul, and they manifest without even us knowing. But it is true. If there's an area of your life where you're not receiving for a long time, it seems like you can't break that barrier. There's a 99.9% chance that you have a belief system that you should not receive, or that it is negative to receive, or that it is sinful to receive, or something of that nature.
Well, I think that part of the challenge around breaking belief systems is that we look at our growth, or we look at our success as a zero-sum game. One of the questions we're getting here, and we probably get it in almost every show, is how do you achieve certainty? You're not here to be perfect, right? I think we said this last week even. You're here to be better. So even when it comes to certainty, you can achieve the certainty of the level that you're at, but your next level requires a different kind of certainty, a next level of certainty. So, many times I talk to people who take Kabbalah 1 and they say, listen, I can't take Kabbalah 2 because I haven't mastered Kabbalah 1 yet. You cannot master Kabbalah 1. There is no A+ in Kabbalah 1. There is no A+ in Kabbalah. You cannot graduate it because it's simply a system of mastering yourself. And you're here to evolve. You're not here to get to a certain level and stay there for the next 70 years.
Right.
So as I evolve, how I interact with my environment, my wealth, the seat of my car, all of that shifts as I shift. And it's really important to remember that, because I think we look at, let's say, the spiritual masters that we see out there in the world, and they look like above it, completely beyond any material, physical trouble, bother. It doesn't being spiritually powerful doesn't mean you're numb.
I had a person this week said to me, we were texting, and they said, am I the only person who has a dysfunctional relationship? I feel like everyone's just enjoying themselves. And I said, look, there's the Instagram version of our friends, and then there's our friends. So Instagram is not it's not an accurate depiction.
We haven't destroyed social media in a while on this show.
I mean, we love social media. We're using social media as we speak, but it is not an accurate depiction of what's going on in everybody. I haven't met a person, and we've met a lot of people who has it all together. I mean, of course, everyone's got challenges. There are some people who are better at handling those challenges and don't let those challenges overcome them. But everybody gets tested, and everyone's fears are coming up, and everyone's deep, darkest fears are coming up.
That to me is point number 2. If point number 1 is don't let what you see, what you hear, what people are saying control you.
Right.
The second one is remember that light is revealed only through effort. Right? If you want to be more connected to the light, more inspired, more prophetic insight, more in the zone, more meeting the right people at the right time, that comes through effort. That doesn't come through sitting on your couch meditating, unless sitting on your couch meditating is the hardest thing for you to do.
Right.
So that the other thing is that it's relative. Looking at somebody, that's one of the things if I go to the bookstore, looking online at the top 20 books, right? A lot of people are saying, this is how I made my $10 billion. This is how I found the love of my life. This is how I stayed married for 120 years. This is how I have angelic children. You can read all those books, the how-tos, but knowing that nobody's ever been you. Nobody's ever been you with the partner that you have, with the tikkun, with the soul's correction process that you have, with the children that you have. So you can read a lot of advice from a lot of people. You can listen to every podcast we've ever done. But know that we can't tell you, no one can tell you exactly how to do it. Part of the way that you reveal the greatness of your soul is in the struggle to figure out how to do it.
You brought up that somebody asked, well, how do you have certainty? So one way that we have learned to have certainty is what I want to share, and then maybe you can comment on it. Certainty, and I'll give you an example. I spoke to someone who was a young guy. I spoke to 2 young guys last month. One guy made it big, literally created $1 billion company. I think late 20s, early 30s. I don't know exactly how old he is, but he's a success story. Another guy, young guy, is trying everything in his power to create this, big $1 billion whatever. And my advice to him was, you're looking at all these other kids your age, and you're reading about them on LinkedIn and the news and whatever, and how they got funding and somebody invested $50 million in them, and you think that's the norm. The truth is, you have to build towards that. Of course, there are these unicorn situations where people make it big. But the reason why they're making it big, by the way, without much effort, is because from a past life, coming into this life, to do their correction, they have to start at that level. So the universe is already going to allow them to get there without effort, because their spiritual work begins when they already got the funding of, let's say, this $1 billion company. Does that make sense? You're showing, are you reading?
I'm looking at a comment.
You're reading a comment. All right. So something we all need to know is that three people trying to, create wealth physically or spiritually, one might get there really fast only because in a past life it was dictated that his spiritual work starts at that level of $1 billion, as opposed to your spiritual work begins achieving that $1 billion. But the point of what I'm trying to say is, my advice to the younger gentleman was that the way you develop certainty is by small wins. Constantly overcoming small things develops the muscle of certainty. When you go to the gym, you don't just start hitting those heavy weights because you see the big guy is doing it.
Right.
You have to have small wins, and small wins give you certainty. People say, I have so many doubts. The reason why people have doubts is because they're not winning the battle against their comfort, against their fears on a small level every day. If you break fears on a small level every day, a little bit of fear, a little bit of discomfort, call the client you don't want to call your parents, something you've been avoiding, some space that there's space and you're just avoiding it, do those actions, and then right after
that's the best.
You'll have certainty.
That's the best assignment we could give for this week.
Small wins.
To write down all the small things, as to quote David, the low-hanging fruit.
Right.
All of the little things that you should be doing, right? Maybe you should be going to the gym. Maybe you should be calling up that friend that you had the falling out with. Maybe you do owe somebody $50 that you could pay back now. Make that list, whether from the most mundane to the most sacred and holy and esoteric,
right.
Everything. And it's not about, especially in this month of Capricorn, where our tendency is going to be to see results.
Right.
Oh, you see, I called them and they weren't happy to talk to me. It didn't work.
Right.
It's not about them being happy to talk to you. It's the effort that you make. So you can be the CEO of a Forbes 500 company, or you can be a stay-at-home mom, or you can be a high school student, right? It's not about how much work you're doing or how busy you are. It's relative to you. That shift begins with you.
You can think big, but the way to achieve greatness is by having small wins every day. And most people don't know that. And going back to the analogy of the two gentlemen I was speaking to, the guy who achieved $1 billion company, if you actually looked at his resume, he already had created 2-3 companies when he was like a teenager and in his 20s, and he sold it for a little bit of money. He had all these small wins. But the other guy just saw the LinkedIn post how it's just this one big win, and he thinks, well, I'm also his age, I can do it.
Right.
He didn't have his own first small wins. So there's nothing wrong with swinging for the fences. There's nothing wrong with thinking big, but earn your way up there, because it's also very dangerous to get too high of an altitude before you've developed your spiritual tolerance for that level, right?
I think what you're saying is totally in line with the whole New Year's resolution movement. Why do the gym go to the gym equinox today? It's packed, right? Go first week of February, crickets. Why? Because we're inspired, right? We set the bar so high that we can't possibly hit it, and therefore why bother?
Right.
And you may have on your list of things to do for this year, for this month, for this week, lofty things, really powerful, big things. What we're saying is focus on the small accomplishments that will get you there. Because what you're hearing, and if you're new to the show, I would suggest you go back, start listening backwards just to get some more nuggets. Or again, you can take Kabbalah 1 as well, but the two do not cancel one another out. One of the things we talk about quite often is being able to pivot, right? When something you're focused on something, and yet, I mean, that's what you were saying in the beginning. If your kid comes up to you and says, "Daddy, I miss you," that's a a good indication that in that moment, pivot, put down the paperwork, put down the cell phone, and be present.
That's right.
But the whole idea of having the goals, setting out with that to-do list for the week, the month, the year, and then being open to the fact that writing that to-do list was the pathway to get you to a completely different destination. That's what it means to be willing to shift or pivot, whatever you want to call it, knowing that I'm being led to the right place no matter what.
And another limitation that comes to people making that shift is people take things personally. And nothing is personal. Nothing anyone says.
Well, that goes back to point number one. Don't believe what you hear, see, read.
Well, you can believe it. It's just not personal, right? Someone tells you you're doing something wrong. That's not personal. It's just the creator saying, hey, you're amazing, but
Be humble.
You're amazing, but if you can fix this, you're going to be even more amazing. That needs to be the starting point, that each person realizes that because you have a soul and the light of the creator is in your soul, there's an amazingness there. But around the soul, there are these things that we call tikkun or klipot. We have these words for them in Kabbalah, that's negativity that stick to us, that our job is to transform. When people give us messages of transformation, it's not personal, even though it feels personal. Even though you don't like their tone, or you don't like the way they came at you, or the timing, or you don't think they're sensitive, none of that stuff really matters. If you want to achieve your greatness, you can't take offense to what people say or when they say it or how they say it. It's being sent by the creator, and it's being sent in a way to bother you, to activate the negativity. I once shared the story of how when I was starting off on the spiritual path, someone would tell me stuff in a way I didn't like. I didn't like their tone. I liked the way they said it to me. And I told my teacher, I wish this person would just be a little more sensitive and say it. And then I'll listen better. I shut down because they're saying it in such a negative way. So my teacher said, nothing your negativity would like more than to deliver feedback in a nice package, very sweet and
dearest darling David,
yes,
you are amazing. In order to be better, this is what you need to do.
5 minutes of compliments, and then tell me what I need to change, right? But you see, my negativity would love that because it's very soothing for the negativity. What you need to do is it needs to be delivered in a way that it activates your negativity. That's the key. That's the hard part.
I think it's also important when we talk about that, willingness to shift, to look at things differently, to take a right or a left when you didn't expect it, is that Kabbalah teaches that the cure comes before the disease.
Right.
And again, anytime you look at setting goals or a vision board or dreaming about how you want your life to look or what vessels you want fulfilled in your life, remember that the cure comes before the disease means that if I ask for my soulmate isn't going to come in the form of David's criticism. My soulmate isn't going to come on a horse-driven carriage, asking for me by name. I'm going to be given a situation that provides me with the opportunity to earn my soulmate.
Right.
And I can tell you beyond a shadow of a doubt, that's not going to feel, look, or smell the way I want it to. And many times in lectures, I use the example of, let's say, for example, I ask for my soulmate, and then I go through a very stressful period in my life, right, where I feel like I don't have time to date. I don't have time for my social life. Maybe my boss is harping on me, or there's a big project I have, at work to do, or whatever it is that takes me out of, what I thought I was doing to get closer to my soulmate. And I'm not handling the stress. I'm telling the universe, I can't do this. It's too much for me. I'm losing it. I'm looking up at the universe, at God, saying you picked the wrong person, not realizing that I asked for my soulmate. And the universe said, okay, here's what you got to do to earn it. Here's the effort that you need to make in order to create that space in your life. And what am I saying in return? I can't handle it.
To add to what you just said, even if you are married or in a relationship, you should always be praying for your soulmate. And I'll explain what that means, because a soulmate is a soul, it's not a person. So you could be married to a person who's not who's energetically hasn't drawn the soul into her or him that is your soulmate. But if you do enough spiritual work, the person you're married to will still be the person, but you draw your soulmate into the person. You draw the soul of your soulmate into the person. So you wake up the next day, you're with the same person, but it's a different person. And so earning the soulmate means earning the soul, attaching to the person. Sometimes people think, I'm not with my soulmate. The soulmate is a different person. Most times it's not a different person. It's actually the person you're with. The reason you're not enjoying being with this person is because you're an idiot and you have no vessel to receive the light of this person. How do we know? Many times relationships end and this girl or guy that you thought was like the worst person in the world all of a sudden becomes the greatest person for somebody else. It's because this other person had a vessel to receive the energy of the person you just broke up with, and you never had that vessel. So ultimately, I'm not saying this is the case all the time, but a lot of times when we're not happy in a relationship, it's because we haven't become the right vessel to earn their greatness. So we're just experiencing maybe 5% of their greatness, and then we blame the other person for not being great.
And there's a couple questions that we're getting here in the comments I want to address. First of all, the universe wants us to always remember that any time we face a challenge, we're in the process of earning.
That's right.
When I said before that light is only revealed through effort, it doesn't matter if it's bumper to bumper traffic, you don't get the promotion you want, someone rejects you in some other way, shape, or form. You are all that process of effort, and I'm inclined to use the word spiritual effort just because there's a lot of people out there who work their fingers to the bone and they're hearing what we're saying and they say to themselves, well, I make so much effort. I sleep 4 hours a night.
Right.
I don't see my family. Why aren't I getting all the blessings you're saying? It's not about physical effort. It's about what's an effort for you. So when you ask the question, how do I know I'm being tested? Assume it's always a test. Assume you're always being given a challenge to earn the next blessing and the next blessing, because that's the way the universe is rigged. Every time you face a challenge, and you may slip a little, you may slip a lot before you realize it's a challenge. The moment you realize it's a challenge and you rise to it, you're earning, you're winning, and you're getting closer to whatever the prize is, whether the prize is just greater certainty and security, or it's actually a soulmate or something tangible.
And to comment on that, we also want to make it clear that the universe really has two parts to it, and we're going to experience these two parts all the time. First part is there's an earning phase, and then there's the connection phase, which is the enjoying phase. And there's nothing wrong, and we need to have both. So we don't want to make it sound like, oh, it's always got to be a struggle. Things are always got to be challenging. It's always got to be, then I got to earn the light. There's a period of earning, and then there's the period of revealing and enjoying that which you earned. And we're constantly cycling between these two phases. And when things get tough, you didn't go backwards. You just got promoted.
Right.
You just got promoted to a new phase of earning. And people also need to know when relationships end or friendships end or careers end, it's not that you did something wrong or that they left you.
And it's not a punishment.
Or yeah, that's a punishment, or they left you or they hurt you. You just got promoted. You're just promoting to a new relationship. And even the relationships you failed at, you're just being promoted to a new one. It's like Waze or these GPSs just autocorrect and just give you a new path. It's not a worse path, right? Sometimes it takes longer, but that's okay. You're still getting to where you need to get to. Right. So I think we need to start looking at life also in that positive frame, which is everything's a promotion. Even the things you fail at, don't worry. The universe autocorrects immediately and puts you on a new path. You might get there to your destination 2 minutes later. That's fine. But
recalculating.
Yeah, just recalculating. And it's okay. I mean, what do you want to get there so fast anyways? In fact, most people, when they get to their destination, that's when they get depressed. Most people are more excited about their new car is on the way
than when they
actually get the new car. More people are excited about the dating than the marriage. It's like it's always like that. People, so don't be so like crazy to get to your destination. Enjoying the process is essential.
Now, I know that, again, knowing this time of year, the students I've been speaking to, it is not easy to stay motivated,
right,
to stay inspired. First of all, that's why you have the weekly energy boost. But in being realists, as you know we are, it's hard to keep your eye on the prize when you have a challenge here and a challenge there. You're not seeing results in an area where you've been pushing or working. You know what? It reminds me that there's, I think it's Rav Ashlag, who was the founder of the Kabbalah Center. He talks about how people are motivated. There's two different kinds of motivation in life. There's people that have the engine in the front, that they are motivated by reward. They see their future ahead of them. They chase it. They're inspired, and more power to those people. Then there's people that have the engine in the back of the car. And those are the people that need, and these are my words, of course, not Rav Ashlag, who lived in the early 1900s. You know what I mean. There are those people that need the alarms on their phone, the pop-up reminders, the receptionist who calls 24 hours before. There are people, and that's okay. This is the point, is that it's okay if you're the person that that has the rear engine and needs the push from their environment, needs the push from their behind, but you have to acknowledge it and activate it and ask for it. Not wait for the bills to pile up, not wait for the consequences of not being that front engine automobile, front engine carriage, whatever you want to call it, but really know I tell people, if you don't remind me, I'm going to forget. You have to remind me, because I am that kind of, I'm also, I do find myself being more and more driven and motivated, but by nature, I need the reminders and the pop-ups and all the other things. So part of understanding, again, I know some of you who are commenting, you're on the show with us often, and I know from the past conversations we've had, it's really hard to get yourself out of a rut when you've been there for so long, when you've labeled yourself the victim or the effect of what's happened to you in life, or things that you didn't realize you were choosing when you chose them. All it takes is the recognition of where you're at, right? I'm at this level now. My next level your next level is one action away. That's really what looking at that New Year's resolution list doesn't have to be daunting, and you don't have to throw it out February 1st. If you can be kind and gentle with yourself and really start with those small actions every day.
All right. To wrap up, what top thing that we talked? Yeah, we're gonna wrap up so we can let people get to their spiritual work. We talked about a lot of concepts. Top thing that you want them to take away. It's the longest pause we've ever had on this show.
Yeah, that's like, what if I get it wrong? What if I get it wrong?
I'll say one thing that comes to my mind, and then you just share one thing, because there's a lot of great concepts, and we always think you should hear the show again. But what's our takeaway for you? I think for me, it's important to realize, number one, that consciousness is everything. To really be cognizant of your thoughts, words, and actions. And consciousness is most important when all your pleasures are taken away and your comfort's taken away, and you feel your consciousness is dropping. That's the moment that you're actually earning the light of the Creator, and you're earning your new future. And the second thing I would just throw out there is be cognizant of a limited belief you may have, because it's sabotaging all your plans for success. So you could be doing all the right things, but as long as that limited belief of I can't receive, I shouldn't receive, receiving is sinful or bad, that's a poison pill, and it ruins everything you're trying to do. In any area of your life that you're not receiving, probably because you have a belief system that receiving is wrong.
My turn?
Yeah.
I think that if there's one thing you take away from this week's show, is small wins, is what we said before.
That's right,
about those small actions. And how do you celebrate a small win? Planning your next one.
Right.
Like that excitement and I don't know, the rush you get when you overcome that voice inside that told you couldn't or you shouldn't or it's not possible.
That's right.
Stick it to that voice by plotting your next one. Those small wins. I imagine, again, I'm setting it out for the next 7 days, but imagine for the next year if we all focus on those small wins, those little actions every day, how much better off we'll be, how much better the world will be, how much happier, right?
Beautiful.
How much more joy there will be, not only in our spiritual work, but in bringing home the bacon as well. I think it is really, that's a perfect recipe, because when you see that, what you're doing is you're really proving your belief system's wrong. And I think that there couldn't be anything more exciting than proving your opponent wrong.
Love it.
Guys, we want to wish you a fabulous week, obviously a fabulous 2020. You may be listening on Facebook. You may be listening on Instagram, YouTube. We are also on iTunes, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Google Play, Castbox, and Stitcher. Subscribe, like, share, review. We are reaching more and more people every week because of the sharing that you do. We want to thank you. Anything else?
Oh, that's it. I think it's great, and it's going to be an amazing year for all of us.
All right. Have a fabulous week, everyone. We'll see you next Monday on the Weekly Energy Boost.